I have not been to Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
Feedback Friday edition here, and going through the comments from the last couple days on YouTube and in our inbox. Boy, it's amazing how quickly this year's Timberwolves team can flip the vibe among the fan base, and they did it again this week. But a reminder, the Wolves have several home games left this month and the rest of the season. And Flagrant Howls is hooking you guys up with $15 tickets to select March Timberwolves games. You can visit timberwolves.com/March and use the code SCORE! That's SKOR! And get your $15 Wolves tickets. Tickets will be sent within 48 hours of the game date purchased. Only available for purchase online. Max of 4 tickets per account. Restrictions apply. Tickets not eligible for resale. The first feedback question is actually about restaurants to go to while Carter is in Minneapolis. He says, I'm coming to town for my first Wolves game, actually tonight, against the Pelicans. Looking for some good bar food. Dex, can you recommend anything to old Carter here?
I absolutely can. Carter, you and the fam, you and your buddies, whoever you're going with, go check out Kieran's. It's just steps away from the Target Center. It might have been St. Patrick's Day earlier this week, but it's kind of Irish and St. Patrick's Day every day at Kieran's. Go check it out. They got big screen action. They have award-winning pours. That's right. The way they pour, you got to pour your beer properly, and Kieran's make sure that they do that every time. Plus some great food options, fish and chips. It's the perfect Wolves destination for pre and post game. Go check out Kieran's, just steps away from the Target Center.
All right, boys. Let's start with some Anthony Edwards discussion here. There's been a lot of talk the last couple days about clutch time and Anthony Edwards' role in the Timberwolves getting to the next level and winning these games. Mm-hmm. Where's Waldo 05 chimes in on the Score North YouTube channel. Click that like button, the subscribe button if you haven't already. This summer, Anthony Edwards had better practice and learn 2 or 3 offensive moves and or spots in the half court that he can go to for end game situations. Besides the step back 3, that he's statistically very good at the step back 3, not as much in clutch time, and it feels like his default comfort zone, but it's a high variance shot. And Where's Waldo says, if this team had DeMar DeRozan, we would have 5 more wins, even if he was only playing on this team in clutch time. Because, yeah, DeMar DeRozan, not nearly the overall player necessarily, or like the upside of Anthony Edwards, but he's got that little elbow jumper, that little mid-range sweet spot, and he can dagger team. So, yeah, what do you, and I'll throw this out too, just as kind of a coupling set of data to Where's Waldo. Our guy Jace Frederick from the Pioneer Press, TwinCities.com, Timberwolves beat writer, he tweeted out yesterday, Ant has been one of the elite three-point shooters this year. Over 40%, 10 per game. We've outlined it's one of the great three-point shooting seasons in NBA history. Everywhere else has not been great. In the restricted area, he's shooting just 61%, which is 47th out of 51 players with at least 230 attempts. In the paint, non-restricted area, so like a little bit further out, not quite full mid-range, only 40%, which is 39th out of 41 players with at least 200 attempts. And then the mid-range, he's shooting 36%, which is dead last among players with at least 100 mid-range attempts this season. Your thoughts?
It's really weird because I saw that too, and there has definitely been, I guess, even more regression in some areas of his game than I had thought. Like that to me, when I saw Jace's tweet, that was startling. Like that amount. Like if he was struggling from one area, I'd be like, okay, that's not great. But he is struggling from a variety of areas, and certainly to go back to the clutch time thing, in a situation in which he is absolutely crucial to come through. So, yeah, I don't know what to make of it because the guy works on his game. It's not like he doesn't. He picks something, in this case, the 3-pointers in the offseason last year, right, to work on. So it is startling. If I didn't think he worked on his game, I'd be like, okay, this is a concern. I have to be honest. I don't know what to make of it. I don't know what to make of that much across the board struggles for a guy that we know is a elite basketball player. And I guess the one thing that has sort of put the cologne on the stink is the 3-point shooting has been so good that we sort of, I think, have failed to identify until I actually saw it documented how many other areas he has regressed in.
Yeah.
Yeah, even when you look back, like last season, field goal percentage between 0 and 3 feet, like he shot 70%. And he has never, like, he's got some decent numbers when he's closer to the basket. But, I mean, you look at what he's done this year with the 3-point uptick, which is great. I mean, he has upped his 3-point percentage significantly, and it's historic season. But even attacking the rim, like his dunk rate, his percentage of his field goals that have resulted in dunks is down significantly too. And we've seen the posters and we've seen a lot of the things he's been able to do when he attacks the rim. And it does feel like, even though, yes, the 3-point thing is great, he has the ability to go up there and go try to attack the rim more, but he doesn't want to, or maybe he's just not as good at it. It's one area of his game he definitely needs to just refine a little bit.
Yeah, it's when you start to look at his 5-year career and how his shot chart has evolved. You mentioned the 0 to 3 feet, so let's just call that at the rim. That's generally at the rim. When he was a rookie as a 19-year-old and had kind of a broken jumper, like he wasn't a terrible shooter, but it was pretty inconsistent. 31% of his shot attempts came at the rim. He was much more of a freight train. And that number stayed at 28%. So all the way through the first 3 years of his career, 19 through 21, about a third of his shot attempts came at the rim. And then last year it went from about 30% down to 23% at the rim as he got a little bit more mid-rangey and shooting more threes. And this year, only 17% of his shot attempts are at the rim. And Declan brought up his field goal percentage on those shots is 65%, which in a vacuum you might think, oh, that's pretty high. It's terrible. For a player as physically gifted and freight trainy as he is athletically. In fact, let me give you the league leaders, and I'm gonna take like the centers and the big men out, because obviously if you're a 6'11" powerhouse, you're probably like, if you're Jared Allen in Cleveland, like, yeah, you're going to hit on 80% of your shots at the rim. A lot of those are lobs and things like that. So Chris Paul actually leads all qualified players in at the rim field goal percentage. Chris Paul, the 40-year-old ancient fossil Chris Paul, is shooting 83% at the rim this season. Now he's not, in fairness, he's not getting to the rim nearly as often as he did like 10 years ago. So it's kind of a small sample size. Maybe Kevin Durant is a better count. Now he's a little longer, and he's what, 6'10", 6'11", maybe 7 feet. So in fairness, but Kevin Durant is converting the last couple of years 80 to 82% of his shots at the rim. I mean, you could keep going down this list. Seth Curry, not Steph Curry, Seth Curry with the Hornets, 81% at the rim. LeBron, 79% at the rim. Tyus Jones, 79% at the rim. So he is way down the list. In fact, of the qualified players, you got to get, where is he? He is outside the top 170 players in the league in field goal percentage at the rim. So if I were to just present that, all the stats we can throw out on the show and say, when you watch Anthony Edwards, athletically, springboard nature of his game, the highlight reel dunks, should he be outside the top 170 among all NBA players in field goal percentage at the rim? That's pretty bad. That is definitely, I don't know if it's like, hey, get a bunch of trainers dressed up as football players in the offseason and just have them. And how many times do you see him maybe get fouled or moved off his spot as he's going up, and he gets to the free throw line, but he misses the and one opportunity because he's either too soft or just not able to put the ball in the same spot that some of these other guys do.
Super geeky stats question. Do you have the breakdown of his drives by like month or in game increments? Because it feels like he has been trying to drive more in, let's say, the past 20, 25 games, and he's been flat out missing. Early in the season, it felt like he wasn't. And so
he's getting to the free throw line way more often now than the first 2 months.
So
100%.
I would say the last, let's say, 25 games, it feels like he is actually driving more and he is just missing.
The Flagrant Howls research department can find that, but it would require a little more prep time. So if you could remember that for next week, that would be a great deep dive.
Well, can't we get him to work there in
in
the background?
I can get you free throw attempts here by month. This is crazy.
Yeah,
free throw attempts by month. November, because that was the first full month, 66. December, 31 free throw attempts.
Wow.
January, 130. February, 100. And then March, only 10 games so far, 92. So January, February, March, he's getting to the free throw line among the most often in the league.
Okay, thank you.
So that is your old sports dad eyeballs do not fail you in that regard.
Yeah.
But the point remains, he is not converting at the rim. He's 65%. He should be 75, maybe 80%. Like based on his athletic ability, his springboard legs, everything.
He's strong enough too. That's not like it's not like he's some slight small man. He's an incredibly strong guy.
Yep. So that's fascinating. In fact, like the mid-range stuff, yeah, it'd be nice because man, like there's an opening in the league right now, like an efficiency opening, where if you are a great mid-range player, defenses are not paying full attention. The defenses are kind of welcoming you to shoot that shot because they'd rather you shoot that than a close range shot or a three-pointer. And so if he could get that 36% mid-range up over 40, 45, I mean, Durant's been like, 50%. I can pull this up too. Kevin Durant in his career from 16 feet to the three-point line is like a 50, the last like 8 years, like a 54% shooter from that extended mid-range. And right around the same, maybe just a little bit above 50% in that 10 to 16. So he's about 15 percentage points better in that 10 feet to the three-point line. If you can start cooking in that range and you can start converting more at the rim, I mean, he will literally score 35 points a game at some point.
So what's your guess, Phil, about him taking steps back, though, across a number of very important shooting metrics?
I don't know. I'm kind of like you 10 minutes ago. It's
okay.
You would think
that might be something you're seeing that.
Well, I'm not an NBA scout.
You watch a ton of games.
Well, so do you.
Like you watch more basketball than I do, and it does seem odd. Like I did not know until I saw what Jace tweeted out. I did not realize it was across the board so much.
Yeah, I mean, this would be a great question for maybe Chris Finch has been asked this, or one of the assistant coaches, or I mean Anthony Edwards himself too. But you would think that as you stack new things on top of your game, that it wouldn't completely diminish some of the other areas that you've built on for 5 years. So it is. Is it worth it that he's become this great three-point shooter compared to years past, but the other areas of his offense have been leaky? And the free throws are making up for some of these discrepancies because he's like the other night, he was 5 of 19, but shot like 20 free throws. So it kind of made up for it. But yeah, it's not great. Not great, Bob. Okay, Michael Becker says, I'm done. I can't follow this Wolves team anymore this season. They do not have what it takes. They play like their on-the-court leader, Anthony Edwards, and he's too immature to lead a team where it needs to go this season. They should all be embarrassed, and if the fans aren't booing, they should be. See you next season. Are you, have these last two games, are you completely, by the way, that's not the only similar note like this week that we've received. Have these last two games completely kicked you out interest-wise or confidence-wise on what these Wolves can do?
It definitely coins. I know Dane Moore has dubbed the trademark. I don't know if he's officially trademarked it, but weirdest team ever, like 9-10 years ago was Dane's trademark, and that is also still as strong today as it was when he first coined it. It is a weird team, and any time for Minnesota sports fans. I mean, when I was down there, like around the Target Center block party for games 1 and 2 against the Mavs, and I kind of had this like epiphany of, this is what this feels like. I'm not used to being around this type of atmosphere and this type of excitement. So when you have such a successful season, and even though you're seeing, I think, more positive results lately post-Cat trade, and you're still 7th in the West, and you still can't get ahead of the play-in, the apathy for Timberwolves fans and Minnesota sports fans is legitimate. That's 100% a valid criticism. The last 2 games, like I'm trying not to like take so much stock into those last 2 games. It's natural for fans to react, but to be completely out, no, I'm not completely out. But I understand frustrations after the season you had a year ago.
I've given up on teams before, as we all know. You know, there's been teams where I've been, but I feel like with this Wolves team, and by the way, I get the frustration and they are maddening. So I totally get that. But I sort of feel like I signed up for a ride at the beginning of the season, and now it's become so interesting, I can't let go. Part of that is they do have a star. I think it's tougher to stick with a team if they become mercurial and they don't have a star player. But they've got a star player. They also go through these spurts, i.e. 8 consecutive wins, where it's like they figured it out. And then these last 2 games, you're like, well, wait, hold on a second. This was supposed to be done. More than giving up on this team, I think I'm just flat out too intrigued. I'm just too intrigued to like what the next step is going to be. And they do have some equity, in my opinion, in the book that is Wolves basketball, and the fact that they did make a run to the Western Conference Finals last season, and then made this huge trade, which at first didn't work out at all, and then started to. So I think I'm more caught up in seeing the 2024-25 Wolves, Phil, as a soap opera than I am actually quitting on them.
Yeah, I think we have to remember. I'm super interested to see what happens. I mean, clearly it looks like play-in. These last 2 games have made it much, much, much less likely that they can get the 6th seed, just mathematically. But I am curious to see what happens if they can get through the play-in and into a series against maybe 2 seed Houston or the Nuggets, who they've had their number. But I feel like we're trying to balance these short-term, in-the-now annoyances and these hiccups and growing pains with a team that's being led by a 23-year-old superstar, with the long-term big picture and the history of the NBA too, where LeBron James didn't win his first championship until he was 27 years old. Michael Jordan didn't win his first championship until he was 27 years old. Steph was 26 when the Warriors won the first of, the dynasty championship. So all of these Anthony Edwards criticisms are valid in the moment, but also to be expected when you look at NBA history. I mean, I just pulled up, just for fun, like the mid-late 80s Bulls, because all we remember are the 6 championships in the 90s, but the Bulls had like 3 straight first-round losses. They were under 500 for the first handful of Michael Jordan's seasons. Then they got to 50 wins for the first time. Then they took a step back to 47 and 35. As they were trying to, and then they had to fire Doug Collins to get to Phil Jackson. And there was all of this work being put in for years and years and years to get to the finished product that you see on highlight reels now from 25, 30 years ago. So trying to balance those 2 things. Now, am I saying that Anthony Edwards is for sure destined to be Michael Jordan or LeBron James? No. There are some things. I think there's some basketball IQ things. There's some maturity things that are very different than what you saw with a young LeBron James and Michael Jordan to keep an eye on. Here's another one from Jared. He says, I love Naz Reed. He's so important to our team, but he gets so many free passes because he's beloved. If Julius Randle played defense and rebounded with the energy that Naz Reed does on a lot of nights, the Wolves Twitter would explode. His 3-point shooting is starting to become a concern. He had a career year last year, and he was incredible in January, shooting 57% from 3, but the other months have been closer to the first 4 years. He was 35% in November, 29% in December, 33% in February, and 35% in March so far. We need some consistency and a lot more effort from Naz if we're going to have any playoff success, and think about signing him for $30 million a year. I think this is a fair question, because for some stretches, Naz Reed looks like he's a number 2 or a number 3 guy on a team that can win a championship. But then for other lengthy stretches, he looks like a 6th man.
Yeah.
Like he was 6th man of the year last year, and that's great. But are you, as he hits free agency, are you negotiating with a really good 6th man? Or are you negotiating with a guy that you think can be your starting 4, playing 37 minutes a night and maybe giving you number 2 player in the pecking order productivity.
How much of this, too, is so since he's gotten moved back to the bench, I mean, over these last 6 games, he hasn't really played up to snuff. He's averaging 11 points. He's shooting about 41% from the floor. The rebounds are a little down a bit. I mean, how much of this, too, is, I mean, yeah, he won 6th Man of the Year last year, which is great, but when he was in the starting lineup for those dozen games or so, when the injuries were piling up, he was playing what I thought was his best basketball of the season. So I think there's also a conundrum here of, do you need to get the full starter version of Naz Reed to really make it worth if you're going to pay him like that?
Well, and then here's the question off of that. If you are Tim Connelly and the Wolves, do you consider allowing him to walk and keeping Julius? But as I've said before, my issue is I think that I'm not sure if Julius gets the contract that we're going to continue to see the Julius that we were seeing in that time period where we talked about how well he was playing. I'm not sure we won't, but I'm not positive. So if you can keep one, what's the answer?
I mean, I would still lean into the guy who's 4 years younger and fits the timeline better.
But it's a conversation.
But yeah, and him and Julius are such different players too.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is there's such a wide variance of what you get with Naz Reed, because there's 3-week stretches where he is just an automatic, if he's given the minutes, knockdown 3-point shooter, energy, rebounding, 20, 25 points. And then he goes through stretches like this. And maybe to Declan's point, part of it is, hey, he's been back on the bench. He is trying to fit in with some second unit guys more. And maybe he's playing fewer minutes with Anthony Edwards. But gosh, like that Utah game the other night where they won the game, but it's like, and they blew Utah up, but he was like the only one that didn't join the party that night. The game against the Pelicans where he's bricking a bunch. There's a couple chances for, like, if you hit a 3 against either the Pacers or the Pelicans, that game turns out differently. So a couple more here for you guys. But I believe our friend Heather, Wolves Realtor, is giving Flagrant Howls listeners an opportunity to get some Wolves tickets too, Dex.
That's right. Yeah. Go to wolvesrealtor.com and you can register to win tickets to the April 11th game against the Brooklyn Nets. So go to wolvesrealtor.com. You scroll down there. You can fill out your information to be entered for a chance to win free Wolves tickets. I've sat in those seats. They're great seats to watch a game. And also, as springtime is warming up here too, if you're thinking about selling that house, if you're thinking about buying that house, get in touch with our friend Heather. She's a diehard Wolves fan. She's a season ticket holder. She'd love to help you out, whether that's your first purchase or maybe your second or third purchase. And that entire process is very complicated, and Heather can help you walk you through that. So go to wolvesrealtor.com for those free Timberwolves tickets and contact Heather for all those real estate needs.
And our guy Carter, who was asking about restaurants, I'll throw Bricksworth out for sure. And also Judd, Parlor Bar. If you're Carter, you should go eat one of those Parlor burgers.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely great. And guess what? Pre-game, if you pre-game before the Wolves game, Parlor in the North Loop, the Wolves might drive you absolutely crazy, right? They can be up, they can be down. We've been discussing that. But you know what will never drive you crazy? You know what will satisfy every time? You know what's a championship burger? The one that they make at Parlor, absolutely outstanding. I've also been talking about this. I am a food scout. I'm not an NBA scout, but I'm a food scout, and I'm going to tell you I have scouted, and I think Phil has too, and Dex, the fried chicken sandwich. It might come off the bench behind the burger, but it puts up points. It's absolutely outstanding. The cocktails are great as well. The kitchen open at Parlor until midnight on Friday and Saturday. Again, located in the North Loop, a perfect place to go pre-game before you go watch the Wolves. They might drive you nuts, but your stomach's going to be happy.
That's right. At the end of the day, you're going to have a good taste in your mouth because of the food, not because of the late game execution.
Not because Ant missed another clutch time shot. Parlor never misses in the clutch.
That's right. Okay, Alex says, I've been a Minnesota sports fan all my life, and I'm sorry to say that I didn't discover the Score North channel until last summer. Welcome in, Alex. Since then, I've listened to y'all every day. It makes my work go by a little quicker, so thank you guys for the content. I have a write that down prediction regarding Kevin Garnett. I recall KG being interested in buying the Wolves when, well, he was going to be a very, very small investor. He doesn't have quite that level of money, but yeah, he was in conversations with Glenn Taylor about getting a slice. I'm sure Taylor scoffed when he ignored KG's phone call. Write this down. I like writing things down. Laurie and A-Rod will offer KG either a small percentage of ownership or a front office role within the first year of their tenure of being sworn in by the league. This in an effort to bring him back as the franchise icon he is. What would be, because he'll once this happens, like I think it's really high on the to-do list. What would be a perfect role for KG?
I think a perfect role would probably be some type of like with a nice title, okay? So like a VP title, if that's what he wants. But at the end of the day, I think an ambassador of sorts. Because I don't think, my guess is, Tim Connelly operates in the shadows, right? We've talked about this. Like, he does things you don't see him coming, but yet he has been very successful. My guess is the circle of trust for Connelly is not like super big. I think he's got his guys and his gals, and that's it. So would they take KG's basketball advice and hear it? Yes. Do I think that they want him in the circle? He's a very emotional guy. So I think an ambassador of sorts. I think a guy who is around and look, at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is that Kevin Garnett is associated with the Wolves again on great terms, and that he is around occasionally, and that he is at the building. In fact, he can have a room named after him in the gorgeous new arena that is going to inevitably be built.
The one that we get to share with the Wild.
Yeah. The one that the taxpayers will not be asked to pay for because they're going broke paying for the Wild's improvements. But I don't know that he has to have like a basketball role. I think what he really needs to have is an identity and be in good standing and be seen as a member of the Wolves family.
Wasn't part of the ousting too when Flip brought KG back and then Flip tragically passes away? Wasn't it part of that? Wasn't part of the agreement that once KG was done playing that he was going to have more of like a kind of a GM role, not even just like the ambassador role, or was that
not
like
a
kind
GM
of
as
small
much.
piece of the team? I think is what they had talked about,
okay.
because Flip got a piece of the team to come back.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
It was apparently it was a conversation mostly between Flip and KG that Glenn was maybe made privy to, but nothing was official because KG was still an active player in the league. And then when Flip passed away, Glenn was like, "Yeah, well, I'm not." That was a conversation you had with Flip. I'm not giving you
right.
Which again, it's like, if you're Glenn, what are you doing?
Yeah,
Dude.
And look, two examples in this town of alumni relationships repaired big time: the Vikings and Twins. Like the Twins were on, I think, non-talking terms with Crew at one point, and did a marvelous job, right, of bringing all those guys back in. The Vikings, I believe in the McCombs days, I don't think that they did a lot. And then the Wilfs put a high priority on, no, it's our history, and our history is really good, despite the fact we don't have a championship. So, like, that to me, it is incredibly important, in my opinion, that you're on good terms with your alumni and especially, of course, your ex-star players. So, like, this is, but that doesn't mean that there has to be a vision of, well, he's going to come back and run the team or something like that. It just means being on good standing. I
mean, we're going on now. It's been over 10 years since his second stint with the Wolves. So we're like, there's like a generation, and by the way, it's been almost 20 years since, like 17 years since his real stint with the Wolves. So we're going on like a generation of Wolves fans who just have no connection to Kevin Garnett because he hasn't been around. Mm-hmm. And I think you have to ask yourself, there's definitely a fan benefit to bringing him back in. What could the benefit be to the players and the organization from a wins and losses standpoint? I don't think he's an assistant coach. I don't think he's the assistant GM. But can he have a presence, off-season workouts, training camps, behind the scenes, just adding some of that KG-ness to the organization?
Yeah, just some flair. Because I would say this, Phil, and we watched this game in Fort Myers during spring training, and it came through the TV, and that is, I would say, among Wolves' regular season games of all time, the Garnett return game against the Wizards is easily like top 3.
Yeah, they were down by like 20, and then KG helped lead them back. And
just a terrific night and fun game.
Yep. So, all right, there's your Feedback Friday here on Flagrant Howls. Let's go, boys. Go beat the Pelicans tonight.
Poke
Go
him with
be-
a stick again. Do
Go
something.
do
stuff.
something.
Do
stuff.
Do
Let's
stuff.
go, guys.
Come on.